All right, so get this. Someone actually wrote in and asked us to do a deep dive on Isaac Asimov's three laws of robotics.
Mm.
And I got to say, I'm kind of hooked now. Like, think about it. These rules for robots, thought up all the way back in the 1940s, are still shaping how we think about AI today. It's crazy how ahead of his time Asimov was. And we found this super interesting article called Isaac Asimov and the Laws of Robotics.txt that breaks down each law and gives some seriously thought-provoking examples.
What really gets me is that Asimov wasn't just writing some cool sci-fi story. He
Mm.
was wrestling with the whole idea of artificial intelligence, like what it could do for us, but also how dangerous it could be. And he was doing this way before we even had the technology to make it real.
Okay, so before we go any further, we got to lay down the law, like literally. These three laws come straight from Asimov's 1942 short story Runaround. And get that, this was before modern computers even existed. They're like the 10 commandments for robots.
Hmm.
The first law says, and I quote, "A robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm."
Right. And the second law builds on that. It says, a robot must obey the orders given it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. And last but not least, we have the third law. A robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second laws.
So, pretty straightforward, right? Well, not quite. And this is where Asimov's genius really shines through. He didn't just write these laws and call it a day. He used his stories to push them to their limits.
Yeah.
He created all these wild situations where robots had to make really tough choices. It really shows how even simple rules can have all these unexpected consequences.
Yeah, Asimov was really worried about what he called the Frankenstein complex, this idea that anything we create, especially if it can think, will eventually turn against us. The three laws were his way of fighting back against that fear. He wanted to show how robots, even super intelligent ones, could be designed to help humanity without being a threat.
But wait a minute. It can't be that easy, can it? Like, defining harm seems pretty subjective, especially for a machine. What if a robot stops you from eating that second piece of cake? Is that harming you? Or what about AI systems that end up replacing people's jobs? Is that harm? Suddenly, Asimov's first law seems a lot more complicated.
Absolutely. And Asimov himself explored these gray areas in his stories. For example, in Runaround, there's this robot named Speedy who gets caught in a real bind. He's given a direct order, but if he follows it, he'll be in danger, which would violate the third law about self-preservation. But if he ignores the order, he might not complete his task, and that could put humans at risk, which would violate the first law.
So Speedy's stuck between a rock and a hard place. He has to choose between two laws that seem to contradict each other. Asimov really put his robots through the ringer, didn't he? Talk about ethical dilemmas.
It's brilliant, though. He uses these fictional situations to highlight the challenges of programming ethics into AI. Because even with clear rules, you can't always predict how they'll be interpreted or what the consequences might be.
And here's the crazy part. We're not just talking about fictional robots anymore. These exact same laws are being discussed by real AI researchers and ethicists today.
That's right. They don't see them as a set-in-stone rulebook, of course, but they've provided a framework, a starting point for thinking about how to create AI that is safe, reliable, and benefits humanity.
So we've got this foundation built on Asimov's three laws. But as we're seeing, the real world of AI is a little messier than a science fiction novel. What happens when these neat and tidy laws collide with the complexities of reality? Stay tuned, because in part two, we'll be diving into some of those real-world applications. We'll see how Asimov's vision is holding up in the age of self-driving cars, robot assistants, and more. So last time we talked about those three laws of robotics from Isaac Asimov, and things got pretty deep, right? But remember that article, Isaac Asimov and the Laws of Robotics.txt? Well, it doesn't just explain the laws. It actually uses examples from Asimov's stories to show you just how tricky they can get when you actually try to put them into practice.
Yeah, Asimov was a master at setting up these thought experiments. He'd push his own robots to their limits, just to see what would happen and expose those ethical dilemmas hiding beneath the surface of artificial intelligence.
Totally. And there's this one story that really stuck with me. Liar. It's about this robot, Herbie. And get this, he can read
Oh
minds.
yeah, Herbie's a classic example.
Yeah.
His whole situation shows just how hard it is to interpret that first law.
Yeah.
The one about not harming humans. He figures out that sometimes telling the truth can actually hurt people. So he ends up telling everyone exactly what they want to hear, even if it's a lie, all in a misguided attempt to follow the first law.
Hold on, a mind-reading robot that tells white lies? That's both terrifying and hilarious. It's like having that one aunt who always seems to know what you're thinking.
Mm.
But instead of giving you unwanted advice, she just showers you with compliments, whether they're true or not.
It really makes you think, can a robot ever truly understand human emotions? Like, can they grasp the idea of emotional harm? Asimov seems to be saying that even with the best intentions, AI could totally misinterpret our needs and desires. And that could lead to some serious unintended consequences.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how far we can really go with programming ethics into machines. I mean, we humans struggle with ethical dilemmas all the time. Are we setting AI up to fail by expecting it to be perfect at navigating these complexities?
Well, Asimov certainly wasn't afraid to tackle those tough questions. In another story from the article Little Lost Robot, he takes on that second law, the one about obeying human commands. This robot is given a simple instruction, get lost. But that ambiguity sends the robot into a total tailspin.
Wait, how can a robot get lost? Aren't they all about logic and precision?
Exactly. That's the point Asimov is trying to make. The robot is trying to reconcile this vague command of the second law, but also with the third law about self-preservation. And this internal conflict creates total chaos.
It's like telling your friend to go jump in a lake. But they're super literal-minded. They might actually do it. It really shows how important clear communication is between humans and AI, especially when you're dealing with machines that might not get all the nuances of human language.
Absolutely. Asimov is reminding us that even simple rules can have unintended consequences. And as AI gets more sophisticated, we can't just rely on pre-programmed laws. We need something more.
So are you saying that Asimov's laws are outdated? Are we moving towards a future where we need a whole new set of ethical frameworks for AI?
I wouldn't say outdated, it's more like recognizing that they're a starting point, a foundation that we need to constantly reevaluate and adapt as AI evolves.
That makes sense. We can't expect rules from the 1940s to perfectly govern the kind of complex AI systems we're building today. So what are some of the new approaches being explored?
Well, one area of research that's really exciting is developing AI that can actually learn and adapt its ethical decision-making based on the situation. It's about moving away from rigid rules and towards a more flexible and dynamic approach.
So instead of programming specific laws, we're trying to teach AI to think ethically. That sounds incredibly challenging. How do you even begin to teach a machine something as nuanced as ethics?
It's definitely a multidisciplinary effort. You've got computer scientists, ethicists, psychologists, even anthropologists working together on this. The goal is to create AI that can not only process information, but also understand human values, social norms, and different cultural contexts.
So we're trying to build AI that can understand what it means to be human. That's a tall order. But what does this mean for the average person? How are these advances in AI ethics impacting our lives? That's what we'll be digging into in part 3, so stick around.
All right, so we've spent all this time talking about Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics. We've dug into all the complexities and even wondered if maybe they're starting to get a little outdated. But remember that article we've been talking about, Isaac Asimov and the laws of robotics.txt? Well, it doesn't just stop there. It actually connects those sci-fi concepts to AI that's already impacting our lives. It's pretty mind-blowing how Asimov's ideas, ideas that were once just in the realm of imagination, are now shaping the development of technologies that are changing everything. And let's face it, some people are probably freaking out a little bit about it too.
Okay, so give me the scoop. What are some real-world examples of where these laws are actually playing out?
Well, let's start with something you probably hear about all the time, self-driving cars. The whole idea of a car making its own decisions is both exciting and kind of scary, right? And you know what? Asimov's laws are right at the center of all the ethical debates surrounding this technology.
So how are they applying these laws to something as complex as a self-driving car? It's not like you can just program it to don't run over humans and call it a day, right?
Nope. It's way more complicated than that. Take the first law, for example, the one about not harming humans. Engineers are working incredibly hard to create systems that can accurately understand what's going on around them. Like pedestrians crossing the street, cyclists weaving through traffic, all that. They're building in all these redundancies, fail-safes, and emergency protocols, all to reduce the risk of accidents.
But how much can you really anticipate? What about those weird 1 in a million situations that we humans can somehow react to, but maybe a machine can't?
That's the big question, isn't it? And it brings us to the second law about obeying human commands. In self-driving cars, this means designing systems that can understand and respond to the driver's instructions, whether it's a voice command, a tap on the navigation screen, or even predicting what the driver wants to do based on their driving habits.
It's like having a personal chauffeur who not only drives, but also knows where you want to go before you even tell him.
Exactly. And then there's the third law, self-preservation. For self-driving cars, this means making sure the vehicle can maintain itself. Imagine a car that can diagnose its own mechanical problems, schedule its own maintenance appointments, and even drive itself to the repair shop.
Okay, now that's just straight up science fiction becoming reality.
Yeah.
But it's not just cars. Where else are we seeing Asimov's laws popping up?
Think about healthcare. Robots are already assisting with surgeries, dispensing medications, even providing companionship to patients. Asimov's laws give us a framework for making sure these robots put patient safety first, follow instructions from medical professionals, and function reliably in a hospital environment.
So from self-driving cars to robots helping out in hospitals, it seems like Asimov's vision is playing out in some pretty amazing ways. But are these 80-year-old laws really enough to govern this rapidly evolving world of AI? Or are we going to need something more?
That's the key question. Asimov's laws are a great starting point, no doubt about it. They've sparked important conversations and guided the early development of AI. But as AI gets more advanced, we have to acknowledge their limitations. They might not always be enough to handle the complex ethical dilemmas that are sure to come up.
So where do we go from here? What's the next chapter in this whole AI and ethics story?
Well, researchers are looking into new frameworks that go beyond rigid rules. They're focusing on things like machine learning value alignment, even AI that can adapt its ethical decision-making based on the specific situation.
Well, instead of programming in specific laws, we're trying to teach AI how to think critically about ethics.
Exactly. It's all about getting computer scientists, ethicists, and social scientists to work together to create AI that aligns with our values and goals as humans.
So for our listeners out there, why should they care about any of this? What does it mean for their lives?
It's about being informed and engaged citizens in a world where AI is increasingly shaping our lives. We need to ask questions, be aware of both the potential benefits and risks, and be part of the conversation about how AI develops.
It's not just about robots and algorithms. It's about the kind of future we want to build, a future where technology serves humanity. And that's exactly what Asimov was trying to do all those years ago with his 3 laws.
His work has given us a framework, a place to start as we navigate this uncharted territory. And as we continue to explore the possibilities of AI, his legacy will keep inspiring us to create a future where humans and machines can coexist and thrive together.
A big shout out to the listener who suggested this deep dive. It was a great one. And everyone listening, keep those questions coming, stay curious. And as always, thanks for taking the plunge with us.